They called him the useless son. 25 years later, they begged him to come home. The rain never stopped that night. It pounded against the windows of the Carter house as if the sky itself wanted to warn someone. 8-year-old Ethan Carter stood barefoot outside the kitchen. His stomach hurt so badly he could barely stand. He hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, inside. The dining table was covered with roasted chicken, warm bread, mashed potatoes, and fresh pie. Margaret smiled as she filled Daniel's plate. My little champion deserves the biggest piece. Daniel laughed. Robert forced himself to smile then. His eyes met Ethan's for one brief second. Robert reached for another plate. Margaret quietly stopped him. There isn't enough. Robert looked at the table. There was enough food for 6 people, but he slowly put the plate back. Ethan understood without saying a word. He turned around and quietly climbed the attic stairs, not because he wasn't hungry, but because he had learned something. Sometimes, silence hurts less than rejection. That wasn't always their family. 6 years earlier, a frightened 2-year-old boy arrived at the Carter house carrying nothing except a tiny silver lion necklace. His parents had supposedly died in a terrible highway accident. Robert had knelt in front of him. I don't know if you'll ever call me Dad. From today, you'll never be alone again. Margaret hugged the little boy so tightly he began laughing for years. The house was full of love then. Everything changed against all medical expectations. Margaret gave birth to Daniel. No one noticed the difference at first, but Ethan did. The bedtime stories ended. The hugs became shorter. His birthday cake became smaller. Family photographs slowly moved him farther from the center, until one day, he disappeared from them completely. Back in the attic, Ethan pulled a worn notebook from beneath a loose floorboard. The first page read, "Things I hope happen one day 1. Mom hugs me again 2. Dad smiles because of me 3. Daniel calls me his brother 4. I want someone to choose me." A single tear landed on the page. He quickly wiped it away. "If I become better, they'll love me again." At that exact moment, a black SUV stopped across the street. Its headlights remained off. Inside, a gray-haired man looked through binoculars. His hands trembled. He whispered only 4 words. "We finally found him." Younger man beside him looked confused. "Should we take the boy tonight?" The older man slowly shook his head. "No, while they're still protecting him." Across the street, Robert looked out the living room window. The moment he saw the SUV, the color drained from his face. His hands began shaking. Margaret quietly walked beside him. She saw the vehicle. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply whispered. "They're back." Robert slowly closed every curtain in the house. Then he looked toward the attic, where Ethan believed no one loved him. Robert whispered through tears, "Forgive us, my son." Outside, a man inside the SUV smiled. "They have no idea. This time, we're not leaving without him." The next morning, Ethan woke before sunrise. The attic was freezing. A cold wind slipped through the cracks in the roof. He quietly folded his blanket and looked out the tiny window. Down below, Margaret was laughing with Daniel as they prepared breakfast together. Ethan smiled to himself. Maybe today she'll call me too." He hurried downstairs. "Mom, I help." Margaret didn't even look at him. "Go bring water from the well. It's freezing outside." Ethan whispered. "So, you wanted to help?" He nodded. "Yes, Mom," without another word. He picked up 2 heavy buckets and walked into the cold morning. An hour later, his hands were numb, his shoes were soaked, but he never complained as he carried the last bucket home. Robert quietly met him outside. "Worked hard." Ethan looked up hopefully, reached into his pocket and handed him a small chocolate bar. "I bought this yesterday. It's for you." Ethan's eyes sparkled. "Thank you, Dad." It was the happiest moment he had experienced in months, but it lasted only seconds. Margaret stepped outside. "What is that?" Daniel immediately pointed. Dad gave Ethan chocolate. Margaret snatched it from Ethan's hands. "Daniel deserves it more." Placed it into Daniel's pocket. Ethan stood completely still. Robert wanted to speak. He opened his mouth and lowered his head once again. He said nothing. That afternoon, school announced the annual science competition. The winner would receive a full scholarship to the state's best academy. Mrs. Wilson looked directly at Ethan. "I want you to represent our school." Classroom erupted. "Him, the poor kid, he'll lose." Mrs. Wilson smiled. "No, I believe he'll win. The first time." Someone had chosen Ethan. He smiled so brightly. Even Mrs. Wilson struggled to hide her tears. Across town, a gray-haired stranger entered an abandoned warehouse. Several men waited inside. One asked quietly, "Are you certain?" The older man placed an old photograph on the table. It showed a smiling 2-year-old boy, wearing a silver lion necklace. "There is no doubt. It's him." Another man frowned. "Then why haven't we taken him?" The older man's face became serious. "Because someone is still protecting him. Whoever that person is has fooled us for 25 years. He slowly closed the folder. "This time, we make no mistakes." Meanwhile, completely unaware of the danger closing in, Ethan sat alone in the attic. He carefully opened his notebook under his 4 wishes. He wrote one more sentence. "Today, someone believed in me. I won't let them down." Outside, a pair of unseen eyes watched the tiny attic window. The hunt had already begun. The entire school buzzed with excitement. The annual science competition was only 3 weeks away. The winner wouldn't just receive a trophy, they would earn a full scholarship to the most prestigious academy in the state. For Ethan, it wasn't just a competition, it was a chance to change his life. After class, Mrs. Wilson stopped him. "Know what people say about you?" "Wrong." She placed a thick science book into his hands. "This belonged to my father. Always said knowledge is something no one can steal. I'm trusting you with it." Ethan held the book as if it were made of gold. "No one has ever trusted me with something this important." Wilson smiled. "I do." That evening, Ethan rushed home. He couldn't wait to start studying, but as he entered the house, Daniel was sitting on the floor crying. "My toy airplane broke." Margaret immediately looked at Ethan. "You did this, didn't you?" Ethan froze. "I just got home. I wasn't even here." Daniel pointed at him. "He looked at it yesterday." Margaret didn't ask another question. She slapped the science book out of Ethan's hands. It crashed into a puddle beside the door, pages scattered across the floor. "Spend the evening cleaning the barn. Dinner, no excuses." Ethan quietly picked up the soaked book. He carefully dried each page with an old towel, not because he feared punishment, but because someone had believed in him, and he refused to let that belief be destroyed. Late that night, Robert entered the barn. He found Ethan studying by the light of a tiny candle. "You should be sleeping." Ethan smiled. "If I sleep now, lose tomorrow." Robert stared at him for several seconds, then he quietly placed an old calculator beside the book. "It was mine. I used it when I was your age. It's not much. Maybe it will help." Ethan looked at the calculator, then at Robert, his eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Dad." Robert smiled sadly for a brief moment. He almost hugged Ethan. Instead, he simply whispered, "I'm sorry." Before Ethan could ask why, Robert walked away. Across town, a grey-haired stranger entered a private office. A woman in an elegant suit was waiting. Without looking up, she asked, "Is the boy still alive?" "Yes, the Carters, they're still protecting him." Woman slowly closed a file marked *** Blackwood, confidential ***. Then she smiled. "Good, them, when the time comes. They'll deliver him to us themselves." Stranger frowned, "And if they refuse?" The woman's smile disappeared. Then the Carter family disappear first. The next morning, the rain had finally stopped for the first time in weeks. Sunlight filled Ethan's tiny attic. He looked at the old calculator Robert had given him. It wasn't expensive, it wasn't new, but to Ethan, it was the greatest gift he had ever received. Someone had finally thought about him. At school. The first round of the science competition began. Dozens of students filled the classroom. Each participant received the same challenge. 2 hours, one impossible problem. The room became completely silent. Pens scratched across paper. Students erased answers again and again. Some gave up after 30 minutes. Ethan never looked up. He solved one equation after another. Mrs. Wilson watched from the back of the room. A quiet smile appeared on her face. She already knew. He was different. 2 hours later, the judges collected every paper. An hour passed before the results were announced. Third place, Ryan Miller. Second place, Sophia Grant. The room became silent. And first place, Principal unfolded the final sheet. Ethan Carter. A moment. No one applauded. The entire classroom stared at Ethan. Then, Mrs. Wilson stood up. She began clapping one by one. Other teachers joined her. The room filled with applause. Ethan had never heard people clap for him before. His eyes filled with tears. When he arrived home, he carried a small gold medal in his hand. "Mom, I won." Margaret barely glanced at him. Daniel interrupted. "Scored a goal at soccer today." Margaret hugged Daniel tightly. "So proud of you." Ethan slowly lowered his medal. No one asked to see it. No one even noticed it. That night, he quietly hung the medal beside his bed in the attic. It was the first thing he had ever won, and the only person who had celebrated it was himself. Across town, a mysterious woman received a phone call. "Boy won again." She smiled. "Excellent. He's even smarter than his father." She walked to a large window overlooking the city. 25 years, we searched for him. Now, he'll lead us to everything." She opened a locked drawer. Inside was a faded family photograph. One face had been burned away. Only a little boy remained untouched. The woman gently touched his picture, then whispered, "Soon, you'll come home, whether you want to or not." Medal still hung above Ethan's small bed. Every night before falling asleep, he looked at it, not because it was made of gold, but because it reminded him that someone believed he could become more than the boy everyone ignored. The following Monday, school announced the second round of the science competition. This time, winners from every town would compete together. Only one student would advance to the national finals. Mrs. Wilson walked toward Ethan. "No, you can do this." She handed him a train ticket. "Competition is in Brookhaven. You'll need your parents' permission." Ethan smiled for the first time. He believed they might actually say yes. At evening, he carefully placed the permission form on the dinner table. "Dad, if I win this round, represent the entire state." Robert picked up the paper, his eyes filled with pride. Before he could sign it, Margaret snatched it away. "No." The room fell silent. Ethan blinked. "Why? You belong here, in another city. It's only one day." "I said no." She tore the permission form in half. Small pieces drifted onto the floor. Ethan didn't cry. He quietly knelt down, picked up every piece, and placed them into his pocket without saying a word. He walked back to the attic. Later that night, Robert climbed the stairs carrying a flashlight. He found Ethan tapping the torn form back together. "I'm sorry," Robert whispered. "I should have protected you." Ethan looked at him. "You still can." Robert closed his eyes then. He took a pen from his pocket. On the back of the repaired form, he signed his name. "If your mother asks, deal with it." The first time in years, Ethan hugged him. Robert froze, then slowly, he hugged Ethan back. Only for a few seconds, but for Ethan, it felt like the happiest moment of his childhood. Neither of them noticed. Someone was watching through the attic window. A camera silently captured everything. Across town, a mysterious woman studied the photographs. One showed Ethan hugging Robert. She smiled coldly. "So, still loves them." She turned toward the gray-haired man. "That makes this much easier." He frowned. "What are you planning?" She placed another file on the table. Its cover read *** Carter family elimination plan ***. If the boy refuses to come with us, we'll give him a reason. Outside, a black SUV slowly started its engine and began driving toward the Carter house. The black SUV stopped across the street. Its engine fell silent. No one got out. Inside, a mysterious woman watched the Carter house through darkened windows. "Wait, tonight changes everything." The next morning, Ethan woke with a strange feeling. The house was unusually quiet. He walked downstairs. Daniel was eating breakfast. Margaret looked exhausted. Robert hadn't come inside all night. "Is he?" Margaret avoided his eyes. He had work. Ethan noticed something. Robert's muddy boots were still by the front door. He hadn't gone to work. At school, Mrs. Wilson smiled as Ethan entered. "Have wonderful news." She handed him a sealed envelope. "Officially qualified for the state science championship." Classroom erupted into whispers. "Poor kid did it again." Wilson continued, "And if you win, you'll receive a full scholarship to Blackwood Academy." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Blackwood Academy, the most prestigious school in the country. His dream was suddenly within reach. That afternoon, as Ethan walked home, he noticed Robert's old truck parked near the forest. Curious, he followed a narrow path, hidden behind the trees. He saw Robert speaking with the gray-haired stranger from the SUV. Robert's voice trembled. "I kept my promise, protected him." Stranger answered quietly, "I know. They know where he is now." Robert's face turned pale. "Much time do we have?" "Very little." Ethan couldn't hear another word. A branch cracked beneath his foot. Both men turned instantly. Shouted, but Ethan had already run. His mind raced. Who was that man? Why was his father secretly meeting him? And what promise had Robert been talking about? That evening, Robert returned home long after sunset. He slowly climbed into the attic. "Ethan, sorry, can't explain yet. Whatever happens, you must trust me." He placed an old brass key into Ethan's hand. "If anything ever happens to me, this key, and go to the old train station. Locker number 27. Promise me." Ethan looked at the key. "I promise." Robert hugged him tightly, longer than ever before, almost as if he feared it would be the last time. Outside, a mysterious woman watched through binoculars. She smiled. "So, finally gave the boy the key." She picked up her phone. "It's confirmed. Carter family has activated the final protocol. Phase 2." At that exact moment, a powerful explosion echoed from the far side of town. The sky turned orange. Ethan rushed to the attic window. In the distance, black smoke rose into the night. Robert looked toward the flames and whispered in horror, "They've started." Explosion could be seen from miles away. Orange flames lit up the night sky. Ethan stood frozen at the attic window. What happened? Robert's face turned white. "They've begun destroying the evidence." Before Ethan could ask another question, Robert grabbed his coat and rushed downstairs. "I'm coming with you," Ethan shouted. "No." Robert stopped. "The first time in your life, I'm asking you to trust me. If I don't return, remember your promise." Locker 27. He disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, Robert still hadn't returned. Margaret sat silently at the kitchen table. She hadn't slept. Daniel looked confused. "Where's Dad?" Margaret forced a smile. "He'll be home soon." But even she didn't believe it. At school, Ethan couldn't concentrate. His eyes kept drifting toward the window. Something felt terribly wrong. Near the end of class, a principal entered. "Ethan Carter, someone is here to see you." Ethan walked into the office. Standing there was the gray-haired stranger. He smiled kindly. "My name is Henry. I was a friend of your father." Ethan stepped back. "I saw you in the forest." Henry nodded. "Then you already know. Your father has been protecting you." Ethan's heart pounded. "Where is he?" Henry looked down. "I don't know. I know this. If you stay here, you'll be in terrible danger." Before Ethan could answer, Mrs. Wilson entered the office. The moment she saw Henry, her expression changed. "You shouldn't be here." Henry sighed. "I had no choice." Wilson looked at Ethan. "Go anywhere with him." Yet, room fell silent. That evening, Ethan returned home. A small package was waiting on his bed. There was no name inside. He found Robert's old wristwatch, a folded map, and a single handwritten note. It read ***, they know about locker 27. ***, do not go there. ***, trust no one. ***, not even me. Ethan's hands began to shake. The handwriting was Robert's. Just then, someone knocked on the front door. 3 slow knocks. Robert's secret signal. Margaret ran to open it. Her smile disappeared instantly. Standing on the porch was Robert. His clothes were covered in blood. He could barely stand before collapsing into Ethan's arms. He whispered only 4 words. They betrayed all of us. Robert collapsed onto the floor. Blood stained his shirt. Margaret screamed. Call an ambulance. Robert grabbed Ethan's wrist before anyone could move. No hospitals. They'll be waiting. James had warned him years ago if Robert was ever taken to a public hospital, their enemies would know exactly where Ethan was. Robert struggled to breathe. He reached into his jacket with trembling hands. He pulled out a small sealed envelope. Ethan, this belongs to you. It was supposed to be opened. On your 18th birthday, Ethan carefully opened it. Inside, there was an old photograph. A newborn baby wrapped in a blue blanket. Standing beside the crib was Robert, Margaret, and James Blackwood. Written on the back were 5 words. ***, our promise begins today. ***. Ethan looked up. You knew my father. Robert nodded weakly. He was my best friend. I promised him I'd protect you. Even if you hated me forever. At that moment, the lights inside the house suddenly went out. Darkness, complete silence. Then, a red laser appeared on the living room wall. Another, then 5 more. Sniper sights, Margaret whispered. Oh no, Robert shouted with the last strength he had. Get down. The front windows exploded. Glass flew across the room. Bullets tore through the walls. Everyone dropped to the floor. Outside, more than 20 armed men surrounded the house. The grey-haired Henry looked through binoculars. They found him. Suddenly, the sound of motorcycle engines echoed through the street. 5 black motorcycles burst through the blockade. Their riders wore black helmets with a silver lion emblem. They opened fire on the attackers. Within seconds, chaos erupted. One rider kicked open the Carter family's front door. He removed his helmet. It was Mrs. Wilson. Move, we have less than 2 minutes. Ethan stared at her. She smiled briefly. I told you. I'd always protect you. She led everyone through a hidden trapdoor beneath the staircase. A narrow tunnel stretched beneath the house. As they disappeared underground, the Carter house exploded behind them. The blast shook the entire neighborhood. Flames rose into the night sky. Ethan turned back. Everything he had called home was gone deep inside the tunnel. Mrs. Wilson stopped beside a massive steel door. She entered a 6-digit code. The door slowly opened. Inside, hundreds of old files covered the walls. Photographs, maps, surveillance records. Every document carried the same title. ***, Operation Lion. ***. Mrs. Wilson looked directly at Ethan. It's time. You learn the truth. She opened the largest file. The first page showed a photograph, not of James, not of Robert, not of Richard, but of Margaret. Across her picture, 1 word was stamped in red. ***, suspect. ***, Ethan couldn't breathe. Stared at the red stamp across Margaret's photograph. ***, suspect. ***, he looked at Mrs. Wilson. What does this mean, Mrs. Wilson slowly closed the file. It means someone wanted you to believe. She betrayed your family. Ethan frowned. Did she? Mrs. Wilson remained silent. That's what we're about to find out. Robert was losing blood. Henry quickly wrapped a bandage around his wound. He needs surgery. Robert shook his head. Yet, Ethan comes first. Even now, he was thinking about his son. Mrs. Wilson opened another file. Inside were dozens of photographs. Margaret, Robert, James Blackwood, and a little boy. Ethan, every picture had been secretly taken over the last 25 years. They watched us. Ethan whispered, every single day. Wilson nodded. They never stopped. Then she placed one final photograph on the table. It had been taken only 3 days earlier. It showed Henry meeting Robert in the forest. Ethan looked at Henry. You knew my father, Henry nodded, for over 30 years. Then tell me the truth. Henry took a deep breath. Margaret never betrayed your parents. Saved them. Room fell silent. What? Henry continued. The night your mother and father were attacked. It was Margaret who warned James. Without her, you would have died that night. Ethan looked back at the file. Then why does it say she's a suspect? Mrs. Wilson answered quietly. Because someone inside the organization changed the records. They wanted everyone to hunt the wrong person. Suddenly, every computer monitor switched on by itself. A face appeared on every screen. The mysterious woman. She smiled. Congratulations. You finally reached the truth. Henry's expression darkened. The woman laughed softly. You still don't recognize me. She removed her glasses. Robert gasped. Can't be, James slowly whispered. Claire. Ethan looked around. Who is Claire? James answered with trembling hands. My sister. My father's oldest daughter. The woman we buried 25 years ago. Claire smiled. No, James, you buried the wrong person. Been alive, watching all of you, this entire time. She leaned closer to the camera. And now, it's finally time to finish the Blackwood family. Room fell into complete silence. No one spoke. No one moved. Claire Blackwood's face filled every monitor. She smiled as if she had already won. My dear family. Waited 25 years for this reunion. James stepped closer to the screen. You murdered Sophia. You murdered my father. You destroyed our family. Claire laughed softly. No, you destroyed yourselves. I only gave each of you a choice. Ethan looked at James. She's my aunt. James nodded slowly. My older sister. The smartest person our family ever produced. The most dangerous, Henry whispered. She planned everything. The fake accident. The stolen company. The hunt for Ethan. 25 years. Every move was hers. Claire opened a folder in front of her. Inside were dozens of photographs. Every birthday Ethan had ever celebrated, every school competition, every report card, every family picture. I watched you grow up. Know your favorite teacher. I know where you cried. I know every wish you ever wrote in that little notebook. Ethan's blood ran cold. My notebook. Claire smiled. Yes, read every page. Margaret covered her mouth. That's impossible. Claire answered quietly. Nothing is impossible. When the enemy lives inside your home. Everyone froze. James slowly turned toward Henry. Henry stared back in shock. It wasn't me. Claire laughed. No, it wasn't Henry. Robert suddenly whispered. Oh God. He looked toward the corner of the room. His hands began shaking. No, it can't be. Wilson followed his eyes there. Hidden inside the smoke detector was a tiny blinking red light, a camera. Someone had been watching and listening the entire time. Henry ripped it from the ceiling. But it was already too late. Claire smiled. Know exactly where you are, outside. The sound of helicopter blades echoed above the bunker. 1, then 3, then 10. The ground trembled. Searchlights pierced the darkness. Henry checked the security monitors. His face turned pale. They found us. More than 100 armed soldiers surrounded the underground facility. Armored vehicles blocked every exit. Claire leaned closer to the camera. Spent 25 years running. Now, I'm coming to take back. Family. Screen suddenly went black at the exact same moment. Every emergency alarm inside the bunker began screaming. Self-destruct sequence ACTIVATD 10 minutes remaining. James looked at Ethan, then at everyone else. His voice was calm, but filled with urgency. There isn't enough time. Can save the evidence, or we can save ourselves. Can't do both. Countdown echoed through the bunker. 10 minutes remaining. Red emergency lights flashed across every corridor. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The self-destruct sequence could no longer be stopped. James looked at everyone. Servers contain enough evidence to destroy Claire forever. Copying everything will take 9 minutes. Henry checked the escape tunnel. We need at least 6 minutes to get out. Silence. They all understood. Someone would have to stay behind. Do it. Ethan stepped forward. James immediately shook his head. No, you've already lost too much. Henry spoke next. Lived my life. Me finish this before anyone could answer. Robert slowly stood up. His wound had reopened. Blood stained his shirt. I made James a promise. Keep it until my last breath. Margaret grabbed his arm. No, you've already given enough. Robert smiled gently. You gave enough too. Suddenly, the bunker speakers came alive. Claire's voice echoed again. Ethan, you still don't understand. This was never about money. James frowned. What are you talking about? Claire smiled. Blackwood Key is only half of the truth. She pressed a button. A hidden vault appeared on one of the monitors. Inside sat dozens of children. Some were crying, some looked terrified. Ethan's face turned white. Who are they? Claire answered calmly. Heirs, children of every family that stood against me. Spent years collecting them. They are my insurance. Margaret gasped. Insane. Claire laughed. Nah, I'm prepared. She'll lean toward the camera. If you release the evidence. They'll die if you destroy the evidence. They'll live. Room fell silent. James clenched his fists. Claire had forced an impossible choice. Justice or innocent children. Henry suddenly noticed something on another monitor. What? He zoomed in on the video feed. One little girl was wearing a silver lion necklace. James froze. Nah. That can't be, Hunra whispered. Shasafa's niece. Claire didn't just kidnap strangers. She had spent 25 years hunting every surviving member of the Blackwood bloodline. Ethan slowly closed his eyes. He remembered his childhood, the hunger, the loneliness, the attic, the notebook. He looked at James. Was saving the children. Jums nuddered, and then finished this at that exact moment. Every light inside the bunker suddenly went out. Complete darkness. Then a calm voice echoed through the room. Mujansa override accepted. Welcome back. Asterisk director Blackwood. Asterisk everyone froze. James looked around in confusion. I never activated that command. Steel wall behind them slowly opened. A hidden elevator, untouched for 25 years, silently rose from beneath the floor. Inside, someone was waiting. The hidden elevator stopped with a soft metallic click. No one moved. The doors slowly opened. An elderly man stepped out. His white hair was neatly combed. His suit was immaculate in one hand. He carried a black cane in the other. A silver ring engraved with the Blackwood lion. James froze. His voice barely escaped. Arthur, this old man smiled. It's been a long time, son. Ethan looked at James. Jums nodded slowly. My grandfather. It's founder of Blackwood Industries. Ethan's eyes widened. But, you said he died. Arthur's smile faded. I allowed the world to believe that. The same reason your father pretended to die. Enemies, only be defeated from the shadows. Claire's face suddenly returned to every monitor for the first time. She no longer looked confident. Yeah, that's impossible. Arthur calmly removed his ring. I built this company. I built this bunker. I built the system you're trying to control. I placed the ring onto a scanner. Access granted. Founder authorization confirmed. Immediately, every alarm inside the bunker stopped. The self-destruct countdown disappeared. Power returned to every room. Claire's smile vanished. What have you done? Arthur looked directly into the camera. Taken my company back. Across the city. Inside Claire's secret headquarters. Computer screens began shutting down one after another, bank accounts were frozen, security doors unlocked, private files copied themselves automatically. Her communications network collapsed, one of her guards shuttered, Mum. We've lost control of every server, Anath yelled, offshore accounts a gun, Kla slammed her fist onto the desk. Nah, that's impossible, Arthur spoke calmly through the bunker speakers. You spent 25 years stealing my empire. It took me 25 seconds to destroy yours. Henry checked the security cameras. The soldiers outside had stopped advancing. Many were lowering their weapons. Some were removing their earpieces. Abandoning Kla, Jums whispered. They've realized she's already lost. Arthur slowly turned toward Uthan. He reached into his coat and removed a small wooden box. Carried this, since the day you disappeared. Inside lay a tiny silver baby bracelet, engraved on it were the words, Estaruskastarusk Uthan Alexander Blukust Estaruskastarusk. Uther gently placed it into Uthan's hands. Your mother asked me if anything happened to her. Give this to you myself. Tuz filled Uthan's eyes. He carefully held the bracelet against his heart. Arthur smiled warmly. Grown into exactly the man she hoped you would become, if anyone could speak. Henry's radio suddenly crackled. His face turned pale. He looked at Arthur. We'll have another problem. Arthur frowned. What is it? Hunra answered quietly. We found the children. Kla isn't there. Jums looked toward the dark security monitors. She's escaped, far away. A black helicopter disappeared into the storm clouds. Inside, Kla watched Uthan's live security feed. She smiled once again. Thus game, as far from over. Helicopter vanished into the storm. Kla had escaped for several seconds. No one spoke. Uthan stared at the empty radar screen. She's gone. Uther calmly shook his head. Nah, she thinks she's escaping. She's following the route I wanted. Everyone looked at him. James frowned. Nya, Uther nodded. 25 years. Been waiting for her final mistake. Henry rushed into the control room. We've rescued the children. Looks safe. A wave of relief filled the bunker. Uthan smiled for the first time that day. Alive. Uther looked at him proudly. Your mother always said, it's measure of a man. The people he chooses to save. Suddenly, one rescued boy approached Uthan. He couldn't have been older than 8. He held a worn notebook. I heard your story. This boy looked down. Parents said nobody wanted me. Uthan slowly knelt beside him. Know how that feels? Boy asked. Never stop Hutung. Uthan thought for a moment, then smiled. Nah, but one day, its pain stops controlling your life. Boy hugged him tightly. James watched silently, his eyes filled with tears. He wasn't just looking at his son anymore, he was looking at the man Uthan had become. Meanwhile, high above the mountains, Kla's helicopter flew through heavy rain. One of her pilots looked worried. Mum, our fuel is running low. Kla didn't answer. She kept watching Uthan's live feed. Her still has the drive. As long as he has it. I haven't lost. Suddenly, a warning alarm echoed through the cockpit. Missile lock DTCTD. The pilot panicked. Being Treku, Kla looked out the window. 2 military helicopters appeared through the clouds. Arthur's voice came over the emergency radio. It's over, Kla. You've run out of places to hide. Kla smiled strangely. Nah. Run out of reasons to. She reached beneath her seat and removed a small silver remote. James' face turned white as he saw the signal appear on the bunker monitor. Nah, Asa whispered. She wouldn't. Kla looked into the camera one final time. If I can't have the Blackwood legacy, no one will. She pressed the button. Deep beneath Blackwood Industries, a hidden vault suddenly activated. One message flashed across every monitor. Estaruskastarusk Junasus protocol unubbed. Estaruskastarusk Hunra's hands began shaking. Arthur closed his eyes. After 25 years, his greatest secret had just been awakened. Genesis protocol enabled. The warning flashed across every monitor. Red lights flooded the bunker. A mechanical voice echoed through every hallway. Funnel authorization confirmed. Project Genesis is now active. Uthan looked at Arthur. What is Junasus? Arthur closed his eyes. It was never supposed to be used. Jums stepped forward. You told me it was destroyed. Arthur nodded. I lied. I was afraid someone would find it. Hunra stared at the security screens. What exactly is it? Arthur answered quietly. Genesis isn't a weapon. That's the truth. 40 years earlier, Blackwood Industries secretly documented every illegal transaction, every assassination, every corrupt politician, every criminal organization they had ever uncovered. Arthur feared that if the evidence disappeared, history would repeat itself, so he created Genesis, a secure system that could never be erased. If activated, it would automatically release every secret to governments, journalists, and courts around the world. Kla had never wanted the company. She wanted Genesis, because it contained the names of the people who had helped build her empire. Henry suddenly shouted. Ats upladung's progress bar appeared. 3%, 7%, 12%. James smiled. If it reaches 100%. Luck finished. Arthur slowly shook his head. Nah, if it reaches 100%. Its innocent names hidden inside will be exposed too. Everyone froze. There are undercover agents. Whatnasas. Children living under new identities. Genesis finishes. They'll all become targets. Uthan stared at the screen. So either we stop it, and Kla escapes. We let it finish, and innocent people die. Arthur nodded. There has never been a harder choice. Suddenly, a new face appeared on the largest monitor. Not Clun, not Richard, a young woman wearing an FBI badge. My name is Oliver Hayes. Spent 12 years undercover inside Clu's organization. If you're seeing this, you have less than 15 minutes. There is one way to save everyone. She uploaded a map at its center. A small underground control room. Only one person could enter. Only one fingerprint would unlock it. The screen zoomed in. Authorization required. **** Ethan Alexander Blackwood ****. Ethan looked at his hand. Arthur whispered, "Your mother planned for this. The final choice. Always meant to be yours." Upload reached 25% and somewhere beneath Blackwood Industries. A massive steel door slowly unlocked. Waiting for Ethan alone, the massive steel door slowly opened. A cold wind rushed through the corridor. Beyond it, a single hallway stretched into darkness. No guards, no cameras, only silence. Arthur looked at Ethan. "From this point on, you go alone." Ethan nodded without another word. He stepped inside. The steel door closed behind him. The hallway ended at a circular room in the center. A black terminal stood beneath a single white light. A message appeared on the screen. "Welcome, ETHAN Alexander Blackwood, please confirm identity." Ethan placed his hand on the scanner. A soft tone echoed. "Identity." Another message appeared. "If you continue, your decision cannot be reversed." Two buttons appeared. "Release Genesis, stop Genesis." Ethan stared at them. Neither choice felt right. Suddenly, a hidden projector switched on. A recording filled the room. Sophia, his mother. She smiled exactly as she had in the old photographs. "My beautiful boy. If you've reached this room, then you are no longer a child. I know you're frightened. So was I." She took a deep breath. "Your grandfather believed justice should come before everything. Your father believed family should come before everything. I believed. Neither matters. If innocent people suffer." She smiled warmly. "Choose revenge. Choose hope." Recording ended. Ethan quietly wiped away a tear. "I understand." Outside, Henry rushed toward Arthur. "The upload is at 68%. James looked at the security screen. "We are running out of time." Suddenly, another alarm sounded. Multiple unauthorized aircraft detected. Henry zoomed in. 3 military helicopters, but they weren't friendly. One carried Claire. The other 2 were packed with heavily armed mercenaries. "Coming back," Arthur whispered. "This is her final move." Inside the control room, Ethan noticed something strange. A tiny line of text hidden in the corner of the screen. "Emergency option. USEIS only." He touched it. A third option appeared. "Rebuild Genesis." He frowned. "What is this?" Arthur's voice suddenly came through the speaker. "I hoped you'd find it. It's the choice no one else ever saw." James looked at Arthur in surprise. "You never told me." Arthur smiled. "Because only Ethan could unlock it. If he chooses rebuild, the evidence will survive. Every innocent identity will be erased forever." Ethan looked at the screen. "Release, stop, rebuild." 3 choices. 3 futures, only one could save the world. Outside, Claire's helicopter landed on the roof. She stepped out with dozens of mercenaries behind her. She smiled as she looked toward the underground entrance. "This ends today, my dear nephew." Claire's mercenaries stormed the underground entrance. Explosions echoed through the facility. Dust rained from the ceiling. Henry checked the security monitors. "They've breached the first level." James loaded the last magazine into his rifle. "We don't have much time." Arthur remained calm. "We only need enough." Deep inside the Genesis chamber, Ethan stared at the 3 choices. Release Genesis, stop Genesis, rebuild Genesis. His mother's words echoed in his mind. "Choose revenge. Choose hope." He slowly reached toward the screen, but before he could touch it, every monitor went black. A new image appeared. Claire, she was standing only a few floors above him. "My clever nephew, you really think you have a choice?" She smiled. "You don't." She pressed a button. Suddenly, a hidden compartment beneath the terminal opened. Inside was a bomb. The timer immediately laughed. "If you leave, the system finishes without you. If you stay, you die. Either way, I win." Transmission ended. Outside the chamber, heavy gunfire echoed through the corridors. Henry and James fought side by side. For years, they had dreamed of ending this nightmare. Today, they refused to fail. Mercenaries poured into the bunker. James shouted, "Fall back." Arthur calmly walked toward the main control panel. Henry looked at him. "What are you doing?" Arthur smiled. "This bunker was my creation. I'll be the one to close it." He inserted his silver founder's ring into the console. Every blast door inside the facility began closing. Steel barriers separated Claire's mercenaries from Ethan. Henry realized what Arthur had done. "No, you'll be trapped." Arthur nodded. "I know." James grabbed his grandfather's arm. "We can still get you out." Arthur gently pulled away. "My family has spent 25 years sacrificing everything. It's my turn." Final blast door slammed shut. Arthur remained on the opposite side. For the first time, he looked completely at peace. Inside the Genesis chamber, the countdown continued. 03, 4203, 4103, 40. Ethan looked at the 3 choices again. Then, he remembered something when he was 8 years old. He had written one sentence in his notebook. "I want someone To choose me. A tear rolled down his face now. The entire world was waiting for him to make the choice. Outside, Claire reached the final security door. She smiled. Open it. Her engineers connected explosives. One whispered 30 seconds. We're inside. Claire looked directly at the sealed chamber. Enjoy your final moments, Ethan. Be there. Soon. Explosives detonated. The final security door shook violently. Cracks spread across the reinforced steel. Claire smiled. Again, another explosion. The door began to bend inward. Almost through, Henry shouted over the radio inside the Genesis chamber. A countdown reached. 0200. Ethan closed his eyes. His mother's voice echoed once more. Choose hope. He looked at the screen then. He pressed neither button instead. He searched beneath the terminal. There has to be another way. His fingers touched something, a hidden switch. He pulled it. Floor beneath the terminal slowly opened. A small crystal drive rose from the darkness. A message appeared. **** final founders option detected. **** Arthur's recorded voice filled the chamber. Ethan, if you've discovered this, then you refuse to choose between innocent lives and justice. I hoped you would. There is always another way. First two options were never the real test. The real test, whether you would keep looking. Ethan smiled through tears. Arthur continued. This crystal drive contains Genesis, without the identities of innocent people. I hid it where only someone who refused revenge would find it. Insert it. Ethan placed the crystal drive into the terminal. The screen immediately changed. **** safe rebuild initiated. **** progress. 5%, 18%, 34% outside. Henry's monitor suddenly flashed green. Innocent identities are disappearing. James stared in disbelief. He found it. Arthur smiled proudly behind the sealed blast door. I knew he would. Claire finally blasted open the last security door. She rushed inside with her mercenaries, but she stopped instantly. The screen no longer displayed Genesis. Instead, it displayed one sentence. **** Genesis transfer complete. **** Claire's smile disappeared. No, she looked at Ethan. What did you do? Ethan calmly removed the crystal drive. I finished what my family started. Claire raised her pistol. If I can't have it, no one will. She pulled the trigger. Bang! Ethan braced for the impact, but the bullet never reached him. James had thrown himself in front of his son. The bullet struck his shoulder. He fell to one knee. Dad! Ethan caught him before he hit the floor. James smiled despite the pain. This time, I kept my promise. Before Claire could fire again, Henry tackled her to the ground. The pistol slid across the floor. Mercenaries rushed forward. Police special forces burst through the opposite entrance at the same moment. A fierce battle erupted. Within seconds, Claire found herself surrounded. She slowly looked around. Every escape route was gone. Ethan stepped toward her. 25 years of pain stood face to face. Claire looked into his eyes, then quietly asked, So, will you become like me, or will you become man your mother believed you could be? Claire looked into Ethan's eyes. So, will you become like me, or will you become man your mother believed you could be? The room fell silent. Every weapon remained pointed. Every officer waited. Ethan slowly walked toward Claire. He picked up the pistol lying on the floor. For a brief moment, everyone held their breath. Claire smiled. I knew it. You have Blackwood blood. You'll do what must be done. Ethan looked down at the pistol. Then, he calmly removed the magazine, ejected the final round, and placed the empty weapon on the ground. No, I'm ending this. Without becoming you. Claire's smile disappeared for the first time. She looked afraid. Police officers immediately handcuffed her. 25 years of lies ended in silence. James was rushed into surgery. The bullet had narrowly missed his heart. Hours passed. Ethan refused to leave the hospital. Margaret sat beside him. Henry quietly stood by the window. Finally, the surgeon stepped outside. Operation was successful. He's going to live. Relief swept through everyone. Margaret began crying. Henry smiled for the first time in years. Ethan quietly whispered, Thank you. Several weeks later, the Genesis files were presented before an international tribunal because Ethan had chosen the hidden option. Every innocent witness remained protected. Every guilty person was identified over the following months. Hundreds of arrests were made. Corrupt judges, politicians, business leaders, crime bosses. The network Claire had built over decades collapsed forever. Newspapers called it the largest criminal investigation in modern history. Claire stood before the court. The judge asked, Do you have anything to say before sentencing? She slowly looked at Ethan. I lost because I was weaker. Lost because I never understood. What made you different? Ethan answered quietly, You chased power. Family chose sacrifice. That's why they won. Courtroom remained silent. The judge pronounced the sentence, life imprisonment, no possibility of parole. Claire Blackwood was led away in handcuffs. She never looked back. That evening, Arthur gathered the entire family together. James, Margaret, Henry, Daniel, and Ethan. Arthur placed a thick folder on the table. Blackwood fortune legally belongs to you. Ethan looked at the documents, then slowly pushed them back. Except one condition. Arthur smiled. What is it? No child will ever suffer the way I did. Arthur nodded. You have my word. Outside, the sun finally broke through the clouds for the first time in decades. The Blackwood family was truly free, but Ethan still had one final promise to fulfill, a promise he had made. For the little boy, who once cried alone in the attic 1 year later, the world had changed. The Genesis investigation had led to hundreds of convictions. Criminal organizations collapsed. Thousands of innocent people finally received justice. Blackwood Industries had become something entirely different, not an empire of wealth, but an organization built to protect families and children. Ethan stood in front of a newly completed building. Above its entrance, large silver letters read, ***, the Robert Carter Foundation, ***, journalists from around the world had gathered. One reporter asked, Mr. Blackwood inherited one of the largest fortunes in the country, spent almost all of it helping strangers. Ethan smiled. They aren't strangers. Their children are waiting for someone to believe in them. Inside the building, hundreds of children laughed together. Some had lost their parents, some had escaped abuse, some had nowhere else to go. Ethan walked through the halls. A little girl quietly tugged on his sleeve. Mister, it true, you grew up in an attic. Ethan smiled. I did. Scared every day. Then why are you smiling now? He knelt beside her. Because someone eventually found me. Now, it's my turn to find others. The little girl hugged him for a moment. Ethan remembered the lonely boy he used to be. Across the room, Margaret watched silently. She still carried guilt even after everything. Ethan walked over without saying a word. He hugged her. You don't have to keep punishing yourself. You already gave me back my family, Margaret cried. Spend the rest of my life trying to deserve that. Daniel approached Ethan. He held an old cardboard box. I found this while cleaning the attic. Inside was Ethan's childhood notebook. The pages had become yellow with age. Ethan slowly opened it. The first wishes were still there then. He turned to the final blank page. He picked up a pen and wrote, I was never worthless. I was simply waiting for the truth. He closed the notebook with a smile. Later that evening, James stood beside Robert's grave. Ethan quietly joined him. James placed fresh flowers on the stone. Owe him everything. Ethan nodded. He wasn't my father by blood. He chose me. Sometimes, that's even stronger. Two men stood together in silence as the sun disappeared behind the hills. A gentle breeze moved through the cemetery for the first time. It no longer carried sadness, only peace. Ethan looked at the sky and whispered, We did it, Dad, just to James, but to Robert too. Because in his heart, he had always had two fathers, and he would honor both for the rest of his life. Only one chapter remained. 5 years later, the Robert Carter Foundation had become one of the largest charities in the world. More than 2 million children had received food, homes, scholarships, medical care, and something many of them had never experienced before. A family. Every entrance carried the same words, ***, no child is worthless. ***, those 4 words had become Ethan's promise to the world. One bright autumn morning, Ethan returned to the old Carter house. It had been carefully restored. Nothing had been changed. The attic was still there, the tiny window, the old wooden floor, the place where a little boy once believed nobody loved him. Ethan slowly climbed the stairs. He opened the loose floorboard. Inside, his childhood notebook was waiting. He smiled, then gently placed beside it Robert's old watch, James' first letter, Sophia's silver bracelet, Margaret's family photograph, and the silver lion necklace that had changed his life forever. He quietly closed the floorboard. Pain can stay here. The love comes with me. Outside, James and Margaret were waiting. Daniel stood beside them with his own wife and little daughter. The little girl ran toward Ethan. Uncle Ethan. She hugged him tightly. He laughed. What happened? I drew something for you. She handed him a picture. It showed one big family, standing together. At the top, she had written, ***, family isn't made by blood. It's made by love, ***. Ethan smiled through tears. It might be the most beautiful gift I've ever received. That evening, the Carter Foundation opened its 100th children's home. Hundreds of families gathered for the celebration. Arthur slowly walked onto the stage. Although much older now, his voice remained strong. I spent my life building a business. My grandson built something far greater. Built hope. Audience stood and applauded for several minutes. No one stopped clapping. Ethan stepped to the microphone. He looked across the crowd. Among them were children who had once been homeless, children who had once been abandoned, children who now smiled without fear. He took a deep breath. When I was 8 years old, I believed I was unwanted. I believed nobody loved me. I was wrong. Sometimes, the greatest love looks like sacrifice. My parents carried a burden I couldn't understand. They gave up being loved, so I could live. I lost many years, but I never lost my family. He paused, looking toward the sky. If you're listening, you feel forgotten. Please don't give up. Your story isn't over yet. The pain you're surviving today, become the reason someone else survives tomorrow. The entire audience rose to its feet. Many were crying, others smiled through their tears. Late that night, Ethan stood alone beneath the stars. A gentle breeze moved through the trees. He closed his eyes and whispered, Mom, Dad, Robert, thank you. I finally came home. Above him, the sky was clear for the first time in his life. There was no fear, no secrets, no running, only peace. And somewhere, in the hearts of every child whose life he had changed, the Carter family would live on forever. ***, the end.